It's a great privilege to recognise Hatem's contribution to Australian medicine and for Francis being so supportive during this time of great activity. What I want to talk about is the role of Australian haematology in the world setting. And again, this was a title that was given to me by Sean, and it was very appropriate to consider this. Let me draw your attention to the player.
You can read.
To the left. First thing I want to declare is I'm a West Coast Eagles supporter. The second thing is Australian haematology is just like this player, Jack Darling. He's up and coming West Coast player. He shows signs of greatness, but will he develop into a champion player? In football, the contribution of the individual is obvious. A 60-metre goal to win the match is accoladed and photographed and acknowledged. But what is overlooked is what the team contributes to that individual's development. And my proposition today is that Australia, more than any time, needs the support of strong academic societies in order to have an outstanding impact on the world stage, to bridge the communication gap that can be there to impede scientific discovery. And really what I want to look at is the role of the Australian Society of Thrombosis and Haemostasis, and secondly, the Asian Pacific Society of Thrombosis and Haemostasis, as well as the International Society of Thrombosis and Haemostasis. And Hatem's been an integral part in the development of all these societies as foundation member of president of both the Australasian and the Asian Pacific Societies, and also Vice President of the very successful Sydney meeting of the International Society of Thrombosis and Haemostasis. And it's very timely to consider the role of societies in our academic medical program and translational research. And we've already heard of two crucial reports that have come out in February. One is the Australia in the Asian Century, and we've heard already a lot about the McKeown Review of health and medical research. And it's very timely to consider what the role of these societies are and the impact of this in this setting. If you look at the McKeown report, that delivering through partnerships is the most important aspect of delivering high quality clinical care to Australians in our health system. And I suggest that the role of the societies is enhancing those partnerships between medical research institutes, universities, hospital clinics, to drive the change that are required. What's the impeding aspects of a society such as the ASTH is it's still a voluntary organisation of health professionals who have a passion for patient care, but often that passion's not acknowledged in the institution that person works, with very variable acceptance of the role of that person and its impact on clinical care in that particular jurisdiction. It's also apparent that there's increasing demands upon all of us in regards to core patient activity that's driven by activity-based funding models, and also efficiency cuts that seems to be a popular term that's used, and for both academics, clinicians and scientific researchers to deliver the high quality standards is sometimes difficult in this environment. And one important thing is the tangible benefits of having a society as strong as the ASTH needs to be recognised in the model of communication of health professionals for Australian-wide delivery of quality services. You can see from, again, the McKeown report, this is a very interesting graphic of the quality of life on this axis and the cost of medical care. And you can see that without the development of new knowledge of clinical research and biomedical research, that the cost, the diminishing cost returns will be apparent for the amount of money that's spent. But translating the research is also giving a quantum leap and giving value for money for our medical research. but even more importantly, eliminating the adverse events of the new medicine and translating the research that we read in the New England Journal of Medicine well into our Australian community also has an impact on cost. And I suggest that the ASTH has a role in delivering all these achievables from the McEwen report in this setting. The paper on the Asia, role of Australia in Asia is just a very interesting graphic of the change simply in 8 years of academic interactions between Asia and the Australian institutions. You can see all the major cities in Australia are developing strong links that with China, South Korea, India, as well as other established entities. So clearly this is going to be a very important area of growth and interaction, and the Asian Pacific Society of Thrombosis and Haemostasis can play an important role in this interaction for the benefit of all. I've just got to come back to this question of who is Hatem Salem. If you look simply on Facebook, I'm sure Hatem didn't look like this as a baby. So Hatem Salem online, he was online 24/7. I don't think that's true either. Hatem Salem's obviously a very important person in the advertising world. Hatem's success is also another successful counterpart, hosting the Cairo Fashion Parade. Hatem, don't dream on too much along that path. But really we know and acknowledge what the contribution of Hatem Salem is. He really is a man of great ability to communicate the passion of medicine as well as the science of medicine. He's a great bedside physician. He's a good haematologist that understands basic disease mechanism. He's an outstanding basic scientist. He's been a mentor to many in this room. He's been a teacher and colleague and friend. And I think all those attributes bring together the man that we have today and why this room's full of people to acknowledge his contribution. It really comes back to this role of the clinician scientist. And it's just fascinating that Hatem's perhaps in the same realm as Sir William Osler in observing what happens at the bedside and trying to understand the mechanism of this in scientific discovery. The Australian Centre of Blood Diseases probably started with these observations that vessels always present as separate elements in the blood, but a drop of blood always found accumulates together. And a lot of the platelet research that we're going to hear this afternoon is really unfolding these mechanisms that was observed a century or more ago by a clinician who was interested in the patient care and to try and understand the mechanisms of this in helping them. And we've already heard of Hatem's contribution. There's some old papers that have come out. I still need to ask Hatem what the coagulation accelerating factor is in glomerulonephritis. He made some fundamental discoveries, as we've heard, as a tutor on patients that he observed by going to the laboratory doing simple experiments. Some of the co-authors have been prominent in haematology in the role of Barry Firkin will need to be acknowledged. And we're sad to hear of the passing of Jerry Coots very recently. Simple clinical observations of the role of iron in polycythemia. Again, Martin and Jim Wiley are in the audience. People that came together at the Monash Medical School observing this. And we can see Hatem, the scientist, coming with fundamental understanding of disease mechanism. So this role is really emphasised, but even more so, I think, the role in this academic society is the role of mentoring. And I think this is an underappreciated, forgotten art, and certainly Australian Haematology and the Societies for Medical Research acknowledge Barry Firkin as a great mentor. He was here at the Alfred and the Foundation Professor of the Monash Medical School. And passion for going from the bedside, seeing what's happened to the patient, trying to understand the disease mechanism in the test tube. And certainly that's the exciting bit of haematology that we should be pursuing further. So the ASTH was established in 1984 in Perth. It has over 200 members, and it's a very eclectic band of individuals, of clinicians, scientists and nurses. The major contribution is the role of the annual scientific meeting, where young investigators, young researchers can present their work at a forum amongst peers before they go on the world stage. And certainly it encourages people to perform basic research work, to perform translational research work, and it was an important aspect of the formation of the ASTH in recognising that thrombosis and haemostasis, that blood flow really is important in understanding in Australia. The Barry Firkin orations given each year by a eminent person in thrombosis and haemostasis encourage excellence in science by having an annual medal with financial as well as prestigious awards. We also try and give travel grants to students and others to present at both international meetings and for others to come and present at our Australia New Zealand meeting. The formation of three of the subcommittees of a clinical trials group has been very rewarding. A new technologies group and scientific program group ensures that the science and the clinical interface of haematology is assured in the society. You can see Hatem here, award. He's not just welcoming young female members. This is actually an award to Laura Young in New Zealand in 8 or 9 years ago, and it's fantastic to see someone like Laura who's received an award from the Society for presentation of her clinical research, now being a very active member of the Society in Auckland, New Zealand, and contributing to this work. And if you look at the ASTH contribution to these aspects that really we're striving to develop new knowledge and intervention, the ASTH really has been forefront of some clinical research. The clotting cancer trial that was involved in new treatments for people with malignancy and thrombosis, that's really changed world practice and published in the New England Journal of Medicine. More recently, the role of aspirin in secondary prevention of deep vein thrombosis was really a homegrown project led by Tim Brighton. It was recently published last year in the New England Journal of Medicine that will have wide-ranging impact of secondary prevention of venous thrombosis, both in the developing and not so developing world, because aspirin is so inexpensive and easily available in this setting. There's other work that's done, translation for the diagnosis of heparin-induced thrombocytopenia by Chris Ward, involving all laboratories in Australia and New Zealand in regards to diagnosis of heparin-induced thrombocytopenia that really can change the practice of how we think about this disease and diagnose it. Translating the research into healthcare practice and policy really has been on anticoagulation and bringing out consensus statements on both warfarin reversal and warfarin guidelines have been a very important aspect of the ASTH in regards to a widely used drug that 1% of the population is using, and really to provide guidance for clinicians in this setting, to provide an evidence base to safely use warfarin for both prevention of thromboembolism as well as reducing the risk of bleeding. When DVT became a significant issue, it was hitting newspapers after the Olympics in 2000 that a young girl dying going back from the Olympics to London. The ASTH really was the group that was looked to provide guidance and recommendations in regards to how to prevent this issue and to see what the impact is. And one of the things that was very obvious is that we needed more scientific research to put the issue of DVT into perspective for the public and work out ways to try and prevent this. And certainly Australia contributed to that on the international stage with the World Health Organisation recommendations in regards to this issue. And finally, eliminating adverse events. And I'm being very proud of the ASTH with the introduction of the new oral anticoagulants. These drugs have been trialled by the Clinical Trial Network in Australia and New Zealand. As haematologists, we had good experience with these drugs, but these drugs look very effective, and positive recommendations and articles appeared in prestigious journals such as the New England Journal of Medicine, particularly for atrial fibrillation compared to warfarin. And what the ASTH has provided Australia is trying to translate that clinical trial research safely into our Australian population. And it was quite horrific almost 2 years ago when these drugs were introduced widely, particularly in New Zealand, where not only were the drugs introduced but funded almost immediately, that there was elderly people coming to our city hospitals with substantial hemorrhage, and we really didn't have an idea of what to do, what tests to measure, how to achieve haemostasis, and bad clinical outcomes are occurring simply because these very promising agents are introduced without the translation of clinical research in our hospital system. And the Society's been working very hard over the last 2 years to come up with a laboratory test for some of these agents that can be widely used. We're still not sure what haemostatic agents to give in this setting, but certainly the Society has given consideration and advice to laboratories across Australia and New Zealand to bring these new agents more safely into practice. And I think that's been a very good contribution in that the ASTH as a society could write to the Therapeutic Goods Administration to alert them of our concerns, and the Sampson Review was subsequently set up to look at oral anticoagulation in Australia, how we can safely deliver it, and what's the best outcome for our patients in a cost-effective manner. And that's given us a pause so that we can have the opportunity to deliver these new drugs, which are very exciting and likely to replace warfarin more safely in our community. Now, I think the passion for this, it really comes from football with Hatem, and this is the team song, and really the one for all setting is very obvious in Hatem's psyche. Singing that team song, not too often I hope against West Coast Eagles supporters, is an important part of the ASTH, in that together Australia and New Zealand can make a substantial contribution, more than us as individuals can from our various institutions. Hatem's foresights really set sight of the Asian Pacific Society of Thrombosis Haemostasis. This is a group of interested haematologists in Asia Pacific that are very much aligned to the recent white paper on Australia and the Asian culture. And it's a very important contact, as you can see, for collaborative research in the Asia Pacific region. One of the highlights of bringing this together was the meeting in Melbourne last year, where both societies helped investigators and dialogues between many of the Asian countries with Australia and New Zealand for a very successful scientific meeting. It's also set up a network to study a rare disease in a large population, to try and understand this TTP or microangiopathic thrombocytopenia. It can be a life-threatening, disabling disease. We see a few cases per year in each of our major hospitals. People struggle with the diagnosis, people struggle with the treatment, the outcomes are not clear, but with a large population in a collaborative research setting, we're hoping that we'll understand both the basic science behind this disease as well as improving clinical outcomes by understanding the disease mechanism to target the treatment better. The International Society of Thrombosis and Haemostasis has come here once in Sydney, a very successful meeting where Hatem was Vice President. It really comes against the background of an ex-Australian Prime Minister that said Australia was the end of the world. That people did enjoy that meeting and the scientific excellence of it. In fact, so much so that they're coming to Melbourne again in 2019. Rob Metcalf's the president there, shuddering in his shoes. I think he needs at least 5 years of NHMRC grant money for that honour of organising that meeting. Hatem's legacy is really around this room, but also at the Australian Centre of Blood Diseases. There's many people that he's interacted with and supported, and I think this quote is very apt in us thinking about the past, and that we're all influenced by the people we've encountered, the talks we've seen, the mentors that we've been encountered. And the last thing I want to say is what Hatem's been doing since his retirement. He's found a new career. He's actually playing now in the Hawthorn Football Club. He's seeking the trophy. And if you roll up your sleeve, Hatem, you can show us your tattoos later. Thank you very much.